this. Okie doke. Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Yes She Can project. We are delighted to be joined today by Rezzy.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
It's our first proper in-person conversation, isn't it? Aside
I know.
Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. So this is quite nice, actually.
It is. We're having a real-time chat.
I know, which is good rather than just DMing each other online.
Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you do?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Rezzy. I'm a television and radio presenter. So I currently work all over the place for lots of different stations and television shows. So yeah, it keeps me nice and busy.
So you've just finished a session as a DJ on your regular slot for is Heart FM.
Yeah, so I do a lot of cover for them. So I work for a company called Global. They own lots of different radio stations. So Heart is the one that I work for. They own Capital, they own Smooth, Gold, Classic. Loads of different stations. But yeah, I do a lot of cover for them so it's Heart and Heart Dance. So Heart Dance is their digital radio station. Right. That they launched a couple of years ago, and it's basically non-stop club classics, which is what they do on the Heart station on a Friday and Saturday night. So it's basically like the party station. So I do loads of cover for them on Heart Dance because I don't know if you can tell, but I've got lots of energy. So it works really well actually for that station, and I love the music. And then every so often I get to cover on the national Heart station as well, which is what I'm going to be doing in a few hours time. So yeah, it's really good. It keeps me busy.
Yeah, it's like a double shift, isn't it?
I know, it really is. But obviously two very different feels, because I'm coming off of a party station where it's like, whoop, whoop. Yeah, we're gearing up to like a big night out in town, to like an early morning. It's a bit more chilled out. And they use different systems as well. So obviously I need to be very careful, make sure I'm concentrating, because you get so used to, it's like driving a car. You get so used to driving one car, and then suddenly you're jumping into a different car that works in a completely different way. So you have to make sure that you're really concentrating, but it's good. It's good fun.
I bet it's so hard though to come down off that high almost, to be like doing all of the classics and getting your rave on, and then coming down to like a little bit more chilled out. Yeah.
It is, I think, as well, because they use very different systems. The dance station that I work on uses a system called Zeta. So I've used Zeta for the majority of my radio career, and it's very, very easy. When I go onto the Heart National station, they use a different system, which is called Genesis, and it's a little bit more complicated. So I feel like, yeah, it's hard in the sense that you really need to like pay attention to what you're doing. But I mean, I've got like quite a big gap now. So normally during this time, I get to like have some food, and then I'll start researching like all the content for my Heart show. So by the time you've done all of that, you've naturally kind of come down off that high anyway, and you're a bit more chilled out, which is good for when you go on air at the really early hours of the morning. So it's good fun.
Well, that's really interesting. Actually, I never knew that like one company owned all of those stations. I had no idea.
Yeah, so they've got a lot going on here. We're based in Leicester Square in London, so it's a huge building, and every floor has a different radio station on it. So it's amazing. I mean, it's a massive company to work for, and I literally love working here. And you never know who you will see, because they have so many celebrities that come in and out. And I remember as a child, I always loved listening to Chris Moyles when he used to be on Radio 1 back in the day. And I always used to listen to him on breakfast. And now he works at Global, and he works on Radio X, and he does a breakfast show for us here. So sometimes if I used to cover like an early breakfast show for Heart, and when I'd be finishing, Chris would be coming in to do his breakfast show on Radio X. And I'd often like bump into him as I'd be leaving in the reception.
On purpose?
No, we'd always just like bump into each other on the stairs because he'd be coming up. I timed it well, Michelle. I'd literally be like, oh my God, it's Chris Moyles. But you'll walk in and see like Little Mix, or like, I don't know, obviously Emma Bunton used to do our breakfast show here on Heart. And I was a huge fan of the Spice Girls when I was a kid.
Me too.
And I loved them. And when I first started working here years ago, I remember coming in to have a meeting, and I was sat with one of the producers, just sat in the office, and she walked out of one of the studios to come and say hello to the producer. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's Emma Bunton. You know, when you're like, play it cool.
Yeah.
I literally just went,
totally.
You're right. Inside, I wanted to be like, oh my God. Yeah, I wanted to be like, I know all your dance routines. I've got all your music on like cassettes and CDs.
Yeah.
But I played it cool. But yeah, it's really cool. So yeah, they own lots of different radio stations basically. So it's good fun.
Who really would you say is your like the favorite celebrity you've ever met before? Either like interviewed or met in the corridor.
Oh, this is so hard. Favorite celebrity. Do you know what? People ask me this a lot. And
do they?
Because before I worked as a presenter, I used to do production stuff for television. So I started off in TV as a runner, where you make like tea and coffee for everyone. And then I kind of moved up to like researching. So it was kind of backstage stuff. And as a runner, I worked on this really cool show called T4, which used to be on Channel 4.
I remember that.
Yeah. And
that takes me back.
Yeah, they used to have loads of really cool celebrities. So it's really hard. I feel like I'm being really big-headed when I say I've met loads of people. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I once had to look after Justin Timberlake. Yeah. He was really, really lovely, really, really nice. The Saturdays, we had them in a lot. They used to come in and perform. I love the
Saturdays.
Yeah, and they were so lovely and really, really polite. Gosh, I've worked with loads. It's so hard. Taylor Swift came in once and she had yeah, I remember she had a really big entourage, like huge, as in like makeup artists, hairstylists, managers, agents, people, stylists, like telling her what to wear. So yeah, she had a really big entourage with her, but she was really lovely. She was a really nice girl.
You can tell she is, can't you? She seems really down to earth and just it's all about her friends, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've met Davina McCall. I used to work on so from someone that wants to be like Davina, I've loved her. Her career has been insane. Yeah. And I used to work on a dance show years ago as a runner, and Davina was our host, and she was just so lovely and so polite and always made time for everyone. And I remember once she came in and brought her kids with her. She was going in to record a voiceover for the show, and she just asked if I could look after her 2 children, and they were so polite. And it was only for half an hour, and they sat and did some colouring in, and they always said like please and thank you. And when she came in to get them, she was like, were they polite? I was like, yes. She was like, did they say please and thank you? I was like, yes, they did. They were really lovely. So she's been a really nice one as well.
Are you allowed to say who is your most difficult celebrity interview? You're like, no. Is it someone we would least expect, if that makes sense? Like someone who comes across really nice, but then actually is quite not.
I wouldn't want to name any names, but
text me later.
Yeah. All I can say is sometimes you meet people that you think are the people that are your idols or your heroes that you've always wanted to meet, and sometimes it can be a little bit disappointing when you meet them. There have been a few that I've met that have been a little bit of a nightmare, but it's all part of the fun, and it keeps you on your toes. So I think if everyone was nice, then I don't know, it would be boring, wouldn't it? But I'm sorry, Michelle, I know you want the juice, but I can't name any names.
I know,
it would be unfair of me to.
No, I know. So everyone really wants to know, like, because when you think of somebody being a TV or radio presenter and being in the limelight in that way, is it all as glitz and glamorous as people expect it to be, or is it? I mean, I know from knowing you work so hard, you work so many hours, and you're constantly busy. So it must be really exhausting.
It's really hard work. It's really, really hard work. And I think years ago, when I decided I wanted to be a presenter, I don't think I realised how hard it would be. I thought it was going to be competitive, but I didn't realise how hard it would be. And just to give you something to work with, like I've been working in TV and radio now for about 10 years, and I've only just started to get bigger shows. It's really difficult, but it's not all glitz and glam. I think I guess it depends what you're working on. I think definitely. So far a lot to be able to come to where I am now. So to give you an idea, I obviously have talked about my heart stuff, which I just cover for. So I don't even get to work here full time. I just kind of come in and cover for them when they need me, as and when. And I've recently started working on the One show as a reporter. I know, which is probably my biggest show to date. I've co-hosted on Jeremy Vine as well, which I still do as and when they need me, which is a show I do on Channel 5. So that's been really good. And I've done that for about 4 or 5 years and I love it. And the one show I've only just got about 2 months ago, and I've been doing loads and loads of stuff for them. So in regards to the journey to get there, it's really long. Difficult. Yeah, because it's a lot of emailing places, getting rejected, people not replying back to you. I honestly will sit there. Some days I get up and I send about 100 emails to all these different places. And then you only maybe get 2 replies back, and they'll be, thanks, but we're not interested. And then you just think, where do I go from here? Because I've sent all these emails already. So not only is it really difficult to get the jobs, once you get the jobs, they aren't always as glamorous as they seem. So like I did a shoot with the One Show a couple of days ago, and I love it. Like I love working on the One Show. It's a lot of fun. And I get to go all over the place, which is really, really cool. And we did a shoot the other day where we had to go to Bolton, and we were interviewing a girls' football team. And just to give you an idea of the journey, I got up in the morning, probably about 7 o'clock. You have to get full on like camera ready. So like hair, makeup, all that stuff at home. Packed an overnight bag, got on a train for 4.5 hours. And it was about 4 or 5 different trains to go from where I am to up to Bolton. And whilst I'm on the train, they then send you the script. So I was doing probably, I think it was 4 different interviews. So I was interviewing the girls together, the football team. I interviewed one of them by herself. I did interviews with the parents, interviews with the coach. So I had all different questions that were scripted for those 4 different interviews. So you have to memorize all of those. Also, they give you a rough idea as to what they're going to answer. Because we do the research. So you know where the interview is going to go. So you already have an idea as what they're going to say. So I kind of need to be familiar with how they're going to answer in case they don't give that answer. Because if they don't say what we want them to say, I need to be able to chase it up.
And like bring it back to
what we wanted. Yeah, so not only are you doing all of that, there were then about 3 or 4 pieces to camera that I needed to obviously memorize as well. So it's a lot to memorize. And although I'm on the train for 4.5 hours, I'm not on just one train for 4.5 hours. I'm getting the tube, I'm changing. You need to be able to eat. So I think by the time I got to Bolton, it was about 2:30, 3 o'clock. And the crew were an hour behind me because they came up on a minibus. So I just had to sit on the street for an hour and just go through my questions again. And then they turned up at like 4 o'clock. So then it was setting up the cameras, getting everything sorted, having a chat with the director. Often, although I'm getting more familiar with the crew now, they have different teams that go out and do different stuff. So sometimes you're working with completely different people you've never worked with before. So then you don't know what their style is. So then you need to make sure that you're doing what they're after. And I think by the time the coach arrived, it was 5. So we started doing all our interviews then, and we were non-stop until 9 o'clock that evening. And then as soon as we finished at 9, not only is it freezing, I was freezing. I think I totally misjudged the weather because where I live in London, it was going to be 28 degrees that day. And I did check the weather in Bolton and it said it was going to be a bit colder, but I definitely didn't dress appropriately. So I was really cold and we'd already started filming. So you can't add on extra layers then. You have to keep with what you're wearing.
Hello and welcome.
Literally shivering. And then I finished at 9. So by the time you finish at 9 o'clock, then it's like the sound guy is he records all the sound onto his equipment. So he then takes whatever it is, his little discs that have all the sound on it, out to hand over to the crew because he's local, so he's not coming back to London. And then the crew have to take they're called rushes. So it's all like the I guess the discs that have all the footage on it. So they're taking those all out the cameras, putting all the cameras away. So we didn't leave until 9:30, and then we drove all the way back to London. So by the time we got back, I think it was probably about 3 o'clock in the morning because we also had to stop to have some food. So we'd gone, I think I had lunch on the train. So the last time I ate was like 12 o'clock lunchtime, and then we didn't finish till 9. So the time we stopped off to get dinner, it was like 10 o'clock at night. So it's a really long day. And then we get back into London at like 3 in the morning. And then we had to stop. So we had to take all the equipment back. So we pull up outside the BBC. So it's in central London. And then I haven't got a pass because I only do reporting for them out and about. So I can't go into the building. So I had to just stand outside and man the suitcases whilst they took all the equipment in and like took everything out the minibus and parked up the minibus. And then we had to go check into a hotel. And then typically the hotel that we stayed in, the other two went to their rooms and I went to go, and I had one of those electronic key cards. So I went to go into my room and it wouldn't work. So then at like 3:30 in the morning, I know, I'm going back downstairs to reception. I'm like, my fob doesn't work. And then their computer system crashed. So they're like, oh no. I know. I was like, should I just sleep on the sofa here? But they were like, oh, have a seat, and like we'll get you a drink. Do you want a wine? But at that time of morning, you're like, no, I just want my bed. So I think for the time I got to sleep, it was probably about 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was lucky in the sense that all I had to do the next day or later on that day was to get up and have breakfast, and I could go home and sleep because I didn't have any other work booked in. But for the two that I was working with, the director and the shooting researcher, they had to get up at 9 and go back into the BBC and edit the film because it was getting played out on the one show later on that evening. So I felt awful because I was so tired, and I went home and I got to have a little bit of a nap. But then they whilst they're editing all the footage, I think it plays out at about 7 o'clock, and about 6:15, 6:30, the director messages me and he's like, we might need you to record a couple more voiceovers. Oh, because this is something I forgot to say. After we finished filming in Bolton and we've gone back to the minibus, I then get in the minibus and they've got some voiceovers, so I record them in the minibus sometimes. So I was just there with like my microphone recording these voiceovers. But often when it comes to editing it in the edit suite, they need the voiceover to change, which doesn't quite make sense. So they messaged me, and obviously I'm at home, so they're like, can you record a voiceover? Can you record it into your phone? And can you go under a duvet to make sure that there's no echoing? This is no word of a lie. So on a couple of days ago, there I am getting my other half to like drape a duvet over me. I'm absolutely sweating because it's so hot under there, trying to record this voiceover, which naturally when you record a voiceover, I'm kind of sat like this or I'm stood upright, so you have more energy. But when you're hunched like under a bed with a duvet over your head, it's a lot harder. But we got there in the end and it played out and everyone was really pleased. So long story short, it's not always as glamorous as it seems. It is hard work, but I love it.
No, it's not. when you said, and they messaged me and said, we need to record, I thought you were going to say and go back to bloody Bolton.
Oh no, can you imagine? No. Although saying that, actually, we did have we had a situation a couple of months ago. It was about a month ago where we were filming a story it was in Stoke-on-Trent. So again, it's quite far away from where I live. So the night before I travelled up and I stayed in a hotel, and then we started filming really early the next day. So we did the interviews with the person that we wanted to interview, and then we did some filming in town, and then in the afternoon we were meant to be doing interviews in a location, but there was an incident that happened at the location which meant we weren't allowed to film for the rest of the day. So we had to go home. So we were just like, none of us really knew what to do. So that was it. We just kind of said, well, okay, they've got stuff going on, we can't go in there and film. So we just had to get the train back to London. And we only had half the story filmed. So we had to wait a week or two until we were able to go back. And then we had to go back up to Stoke-on-Trent to finish the story. So when that happens, obviously you've got to remember what you're wearing, what your hair looks like, what makeup you've got on for continuity. So I took a picture, which is the best way to do it, of myself.
Oh, that's clever. You see, I wouldn't be that forward thinking. That's clever.
You take a photo to make sure that you're always wearing the same. But the one thing I did do between me and you is my nails were so awful that the time we had to film it the second time around, there was no way I could have waited to get my nails done. So I went and got my nails painted. So actually, if you watch it back, in the first half of the film, they're like orange, and in the second half of the film, they're like blue or something.
Oh my God, that's cool.
But no one noticed.
Inside gossip there.
So yeah, it's all part of the fun.
Oh, funny. So with like when you do presenting and stuff, is it like, you know, with acting you have to like either do an audition in person or send a video audition? Do you have to do that with presenting, or do you just have to get to speak to the right people?
A bit of both. Normally it's called a screen test rather than an audition. So normally, probably pre-COVID, they do tend to get you in front of the camera just to see what you look like and how you act. Obviously, because of COVID times, that hasn't always been the case. I mean, I have, this is so weird, but I've done a screen test during the last 12 months for a company, and I did it in my bedroom with them on Zoom. It was the weirdest thing ever, because I was literally like, excuse my wardrobe and my bed behind me, but here is my audition. And I just did it there and then. So that was a little bit odd. But normally what you do is it kind of depends how you get the job or how they find out about you. Sometimes it's done through an agent, and I do have an agent that does sometimes get me jobs. Sometimes I get them myself. It just depends. So for example, with radio, for example, you normally come and do a demo. So for Heart, I was on a different radio station before Heart called Heat Radio. So I don't know if you remember Heat magazine. They had a radio station. So I was doing stuff for them. So I think when I spoke to Heart about coming to do stuff for them, they'd already kind of heard me on air anyway, but they invite you in, and what you do in the studio is it's like a pretend show. So they'll give you the songs and you do all your content, and then they record it just so they could hear what you would sound like if you were actually on air doing a radio show. With TV presenting, sometimes I'm trying to think back. I think when I first started working on Jeremy Vine, it was called The Right Stuff. And the job that I do now as a co-host, we were called a booth girl back then. So you only had a little bit of a part to play in the show. It wasn't as big as what it is now. And for that, what I did is I actually sent them some videos of the presenting stuff I'd already done. So
like a show reel.
Yeah, so I sent them a show reel, of all the stuff I'd done already. And they invited me in to shadow. So they didn't actually invite, I don't think they asked me to do a screen test, but I think it's because I used to work for them as a runner. So I actually started my television career with this production company, making teas and coffees. And the woman that was in charge of it, she'd been really helpful with my presenting career, and she'd kind of kept in touch. So she knew all the stuff I was doing. So for that, they just got me into shadow just to see how to do everything. And then when it came to it, they just booked me in and they just threw me on air. But I think it's because I already had live experience anyway of television. I've done entertainment reporting for Lorraine on ITV a few times, and I did have to do a screen test for that, and that was really, really last minute. And I was going to Southampton for a week to work on a radio station. And it's really funny actually, because the whole way down there, I think I was working on this radio station doing a bit of cover for a week, and I was driving down there and I was thinking to myself, I just really, television work had been very quiet. And I was like, I just really want a new opportunity to come my way. And I was kind of saying it out loud. I really want this new television opportunity to come my way. Like, come on, this has got to happen soon. Like, I've done so much stuff. Like, and by the time I got to the radio station, my phone rang, and it was someone that I used to work with when I was a researcher in TV. And I thought, that's weird. I wonder why he's calling. So I answered the phone. I was like, hello. And he was like, hey, it's blah, blah, blah. And he was like, I'm working on Lorraine at the moment, and we're looking for someone to come and do some showbiz reporting. And, I thought of you, and I wondered if you'd be interested. And I was literally like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Of course. I've just asked the universe for this.
I know. So I was literally like, I can't believe this has just happened. And he said to me, okay, cool. So this was on a Monday. So he was like, well, we're going to need you to come and do your audition tomorrow morning in London. And I was in Southampton doing this radio show a week. So I was a bit like, oh, and I was like, does it have to be tomorrow? Can we do it next week? And he was like, look, they're going to audition other people next week. So I want you to come in and do your screen test first. So he was just like, if you can make it work. So the radio show I was doing was in the afternoon. So I thought I can do it. So I was like, okay, sure, let's do it. So what I had to do was, whilst I was on air doing this radio show, the producers of Lorraine were sending me my whole script. So it was a 10-minute segment that I was talking about all these different entertainment shows. And I had to memorize everything by heart. And I had to know all about these shows. So they were sending me all this stuff. So I was trying to do this radio show, and then I was trying to research all these shows that they were sending me. And then when I finished that evening at 7 o'clock, I then had to drive all the way back to London. So it was like a 2-hour drive, and it was closer to go and stay at my parents'. But obviously I didn't have any TV stuff with me. So on the way back, I'm calling my other half saying, right, I need you to do me a huge favor and pack a suitcase of TV clothes for me and drive an hour to my mum and dad's house. And like makeup and everything. Because when I work in radio, I don't wear the same sort of stuff. I barely wear any makeup. I don't do my hair. So I didn't have any of that stuff with me. So I was trying to explain to him what to pack. And I was like, right, look at my wardrobe. And I was like, straight ahead of you, there's a pair of stripy trousers. Can you pack those? Can you pack this bra to go with it? This underwear? I was like, these shoes. I was like trying to give, so he managed to pack this whole suitcase of stuff, and he drove it to my mum and dad's. And on the way back, I was like memorizing in my head, like, you know, this 10-minute segment that I had to do for them. I was trying to like go through all the lines, and I got back to mum and dad's probably about 10 o'clock at night, and I was up till like midnight trying to make sure I knew all of this stuff. And then the next morning I had to get up at 5 o'clock to get ready and then to go through all this stuff. And they sent me a car to take me into London. So whilst I was in the car, I was like memorizing this script. And then I walked in just after Lorraine had finished her live show. So she leaves the studio, and on her way out, she was like, "Oh, I really like your outfit." And I was like, "Oh my God, Lorraine just said she really likes my outfit." But then you go into the studio. So I walked into this massive studio at ITV, and Lorraine was out, but they had like 5 cameras. There was about 30 crew in there.
Oh my gosh.
There was someone that was pretending to be Lorraine for this air check, for this screen test. And so we both sat down on set, and they mic'd me up and they gave me my earpiece, and they were like, "Right, so we're going to record this as if it's live. Are you happy to do this? Are you happy with everything?" I was like, "Yep." And they were like, "Right then, let's do it. Just make sure you have loads of fun." So yeah, I just recorded this 10-minute piece with this guy who was really lovely, and he pretended to be Lorraine. And then what they do is once you then leave, my friend who had booked me to do it on the way out, he was like, "That was really good. I'm really pleased. Well done." So then they send the footage to the big bosses. So the big bosses will watch it and make sure that they're happy with what you're doing and that you are what they are after. And I got in the taxi and went back to my mum and dad's to then get in my car and drive back to Southampton to do this show. And by the time I got back to my mum and dad's, they called me and said, "Yeah, we want you to do it. You're on air on Thursday morning." So I was like, "Oh my God." So literally I like drove back down to Southampton Tuesday afternoon. And then obviously Wednesday, I was like, "Quick, go into town, find an outfit." And then Wednesday night, it was like memorize the actual script and then come home. And then Thursday morning, it was like, do the actual thing with actual Lorraine. So yeah, so often you do a screen test, but sometimes it doesn't always happen. I mean, with the one show, they contacted me, actually. They approached me and asked if I'd be interested in doing some stuff for them.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I was really excited.
Congratulations. I'm so pleased for you.
Me too. And they just asked to do a Zoom call, actually. So I had a Zoom call with one of the execs, and we chatted about all my experience and what type of stuff I'd done. And she was like, "Okay, well, we'll be in touch." And then literally 2 days later, they just messaged me and said, "Right, we're going to book you for a shoot. Are you free on Monday?" And that was how quick it was. So, but I guess it's because I'm out and about reporting. So you can't really do a screen test for that. I think if I was going into the studio to do what Alex Jones does, then they'd probably get me in and do like a practice run with me to see how I look on camera. But so sometimes you do it, sometimes you don't.
Gosh, so I think it really proves as well, though, it's about who you meet along the way with things like that, especially as you'd been a runner already, and then you were already in their mind for the Jeremy Vine show, and then, like you say, your friend contacting you to go on Lorraine. And you're just so lovely all the time, so I think that helps as well, and your energy is just amazing.
I think that's one thing that's key, is that you've got to make sure you're nice to everyone, because it's such a small world, and you never know who you're going to end up working with. And like this guy that booked me for Lorraine, we used to work together when I was a music researcher on a show. And he booked me to do some entertainment reporting on Big Brother as well. So I've been really lucky. And obviously, like the woman that owned the company where I was working as a runner, she was the one that ended up putting me on air to do The Right Stuff and then Jeremy Vine. So yeah, I definitely think as long as you're nice to everyone, it really does go a long way.
Yeah, definitely, because look at all them years later where you are now and the opportunities that you're getting now, because you made such an impression on people from the very start of your career. So that's really cool.
I try.
I'm so happy
I try.
For you.
Thank you so much.
What's like the dream for you? What would be, if someone said you could have like a dream job presenting something, what would it be for you?
Oh, difficult question. I would say TV wise, I love doing live TV, because so it definitely needs to be live, because I love the buzz from it being live, and the fact that if you're going to make a mistake, everyone's going to see it. So
you love that, do you?
I quite like the fact that I feel like you get more of a rush from it. It's the same with radio. Like I love doing radio live. I think when I pre-record stuff, because I'm such a perfectionist, it's easy to be able to say, "Oh, let's delete that and try again.
Do it again."
And then I feel like it's not as natural. So definitely a live show. I'm not sure. I think back in the day, I'd love to do like big entertainment shows, like stuff like they call it shiny floor shows, so like X Factor or like Britain's Got Talent, I'm a Celebrity, like the really big entertainment shows. I would love to be able to host one of those, even if it's just one of the sister shows, like the Masked Singer. I love that show, and so if you were to do like a sister show where it's like a smaller show for them, I'd love to do something like that. This Morning, I think I'd love to do stuff on This Morning, because I
think you'd be great.
Yeah, so
I really do.
I think anything, as long as it's live, really. But I'd love to do more. I do love doing the reporting side of stuff and being out and about. That's really, really fun. But I'd also love to do more stuff in the studio as well.
Oh, that's so cool. Have you ever found with like live TV? I'm just going to have a sip, but this is an energy drink, FYI. It's not alcoholic.
Do it. You have that. I'll drink my coffee.
Have you ever had any experiences on live TV where something's gone like drastically wrong?
Yes. Yeah, there's been quite a few.
I love live TV, and it goes wrong.
It's all part of the fun. I think the big one for me was things went very wrong once when I was doing a segment on Lorraine, and it was honestly the worst thing ever. And I came home and I just couldn't even watch it back. I think I sat in the corner and cried for about 3 hours. But these things happen.
I can't see you ever crying, Rezzy. You're always so happy and positive.
Oh, it was awful, Michelle, honestly. So I've been wanting to work at ITV for like ever. And it was such a big opportunity to be able to do entertainment on Lorraine is like massive. And I did my first one for them, and it'd gone really, really well. So the first one I did went really, really well, and they were really happy, and they gave me really good feedback, and I was absolutely buzzing, and I was just like, I can't believe this is actually happening. And then literally a couple of days later, they booked me for another one. So I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. So they basically send me through the scripts. And I think with the first one, I think that we had a bit more time with the script. I think they sent it the night before, but for this one I was doing, it was on a Monday, I think, which meant that a lot of the stuff they were having a look to see what was happening over the weekend. So all the stuff got sent over in the morning. So there's less time to memorize things and be more familiar with stuff. So I basically went in and I was doing this segment with Lorraine, and it was all going fine. And we talk about, say, 5 different shows. And in between each show, she's got like a one-liner, which moves me on to the next thing to talk about. And it's always in my script. So I know what she's going to say. So it goes smoothly normally. Anyway, I did my first kind of 2 stories, and then she started doing her one-liner, and it wasn't what was on my cue card. So I was like, oh,
Lorraine.
No. So I was a bit like, I was really confused. And I have an earpiece in as well. So normally they would tell me if we're running over on time, or if, we need to cut a story, they'd normally tell me in my ear, but they hadn't said anything. So I was like, I don't know where this is going. So say the next story I think I was meant to be talking about was, I don't know, Jennifer Aniston on Instagram. And Lorraine was queuing up to talk about Mel B, which was like my 7th story. And I was only on story number 3. So I was like, and as she was saying this, I was like, okay, I need to make a decision about what I'm going to do. So I was like, right, she's not talking about what's on here. They haven't told me in my ear we're cutting any stories. So I looked at her auto cue, and her auto cue was still on my next story, Jennifer Aniston on Instagram. So I was like, surely Lorraine hasn't made a mistake. She's the queen, like she's a pro. So I was like, I can't figure out where this was going. Anyway, she did her one-liner, and I just kind of came in and was like, yes, I'm going to tell you about Mel B in a second, but first let me quickly tell you about Jennifer Aniston, because I thought this is how we can bring it back to my story.
A great side swipe.
Yeah, so then in my ear, I suddenly the producer in the gallery was like, oh no, and I was like, oh no, I don't know what that means. So I was a bit like, oh no. So I was just like, okay, they obviously want to talk about Mel B. So I was like, Jennifer Aniston's on Instagram, and I made it really quick. I was like, everyone's gone crazy for it. She's got loads of followers. But I was like, Mel B, and just like went on to the Mel B story, because I was like, obviously that's what they wanted me to talk about. So we did the Mel B story, and then before she did her one-liner to cue me on to the next thing, she was like, oh, I'm just going to hold you there for a second, because we've got Andy Peters in Outer Mongolia with your chance to win £100,000. And then she threw to Andy Peters, who was live in Outer Mongolia with a load of sheep or whatever. And I was really confused. And I kind of just like literally like the whole time this was happening, when I was like, couldn't figure out what she was doing, your heart starts going really quickly. You suddenly get really shaky. Your brain just melts and you can't remember anything. And you're just like, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. And then so she threw to Andy Peters and I was like, I'm really confused what just happened. And I was like, have I like missed a story? And she was like, oh no, there was she was like, oh yeah, there was a competition throw here, and because Andy's live and he was in place, we had to throw to him. So she was like,
the sheep didn't get him.
Yeah, so she was like, she was trying to what she was trying to do is tease what I was going to talk about, which is why she mentioned Mel B. But I obviously didn't know there was a competition throw. I think it was just cross wires. So I thought that's what she wanted me to talk about next. But actually she was saying, oh, in a bit, we're going to talk about Mel B. And she wanted to say, first, here's Andy. So I totally messed things up. And poor Andy's waiting there with loads of sheep waiting to do this competition. So then I was like, I am so sorry. And I said, I honestly had no idea. And she was like, don't worry, it's absolutely fine. So she was like, when we come back from Andy Peters, go back to your story, your Jennifer Aniston story, and then just work your way through to the end. And she was just like, there's going to be no other interruptions. It'll be absolutely fine. So I was like, okay, but literally you're then shaking and like your brain's gone to mush. And all I was thinking was, right, Rezzy, concentrate. This is it now. Like focus, remember what you're going to say, sit upright, remember to tell her all the things you wanted to say. And we carried on going to the end. But I think as I think we were talking about something and I accidentally said the wrong name of something. I mean, it happens naturally in conversation with people anyway. And then then she corrected me with the name. And then I was like, oh yeah, sorry. And you're just like, oh, this is awful. And I think
it's almost like you give up inside, don't you? And you're like,
and
I can't.
And although I kept going, because it was live, you're just like, I've just got to persevere, like I haven't even made a mistake. But like as soon as we finished, I was like, oh my God, that was awful. And she was so lovely. She was like, look, I don't want you to worry about that at all. It's live television. These things happen. Things go wrong. She was like, you held it together. You didn't fall apart. You didn't cry. You carried on going. And inside, I'm like, I think I want to cry. But she was just like, I don't even want you to think twice about this. Just go home and enjoy the rest of your day. And she was like, you were fab. Don't even worry. But when you can't get it out your head. And I think like I got into, it's funny because my agent called me and he was like, I thought that was the best one you've done. And I was like, but I made so many mistakes. And he was like, but no one would have noticed that.
Exactly.
But one of my friends did call me and she was like, is everything okay? And I was just like, why? She was like, I've just watched Lorraine. And I was like, oh no, you noticed? And she was like, only because I know you. So she was
exactly.
like, I could see the panic on your face. I think it took me a while. I didn't want to go onto Twitter because I was like, people are going to be rinsing me. And then I didn't want to watch it back. And I think eventually, maybe 24 hours later, when I did watch it back, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
As you felt inside at the time.
And I think as an outsider, people probably wouldn't have even noticed. But for me, because I'm a perfectionist and I knew what was meant to be. But I mean, they booked me again and I ended up going to do another one and it was absolutely fine and I smashed it. So these things happen, but it helps you grow, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. Like with you just touching on Twitter there, are people generally on the whole supportive, or do you get a lot of negativity? So I've seen, obviously I've known you for a while now and I've seen on your Instagram some people can be really, really nasty. Do you get a lot of that?
Sadly you do, but you do get a lot of positives as well. And I think that you could get 100 positives and one negative, and the negative will tend to stick to you more than the positives.
Absolutely.
But weirdly, it doesn't bother me. I don't know why. It's like, it's horrible. And it's horrible for anyone that gets like negative tweets or horrible messages on Instagram. But I think I've done this thing where I think the first one I ever had was when I first started working on The Right Stuff. I remember I came off air and someone had tweeted me this really horrible tweet about my accent. And I was really upset by it because they'd said
what's wrong with your accent?
Well, I laugh about it now. When I think back, I always remember his tweet. It was something like, that girl sounds like she's got a mouthful of rusty nails. And he was like, oh, her Twitter bio says she's from Hertfordshire. She's more like from Essex or something. And then he put hashtag foghorn or something like that. And I remember reading it and being like, oh my God, someone doesn't like me.
Oh.
But then I was just like, and I think he continued every time I was on air, he continued to message me a similar sort of thing. And in the end, I just blocked him because I was like, oh, I don't want to see it. But actually, I laugh about it now. And there's been times where you will always get someone saying negative things. Like whenever I co-host on Jeremy Vine, people will always message and insult what you're wearing or your hair or your outfit or your makeup. And I find it funny. So what I do now,
you do make a joke out of it. That's what I really love about you. Whenever you like put something on Instagram, you like, it's so funny the way that you deal with it. And I think it's such a wonderful trait to have, to be able to, you know, switch it on its head that way, when a lot of people can't do that.
Yeah, I think you have to, because if you don't laugh, you'll cry. And as I said, it really doesn't bother me. But I post these things on Instagram because I feel like you shouldn't be able to get away with saying something nasty to someone and nothing being said about it. And although I never really respond back to them because I feel like that's fueling a fire, and I just don't care enough to message them. I'm just like, whatever. But what I do is take a screenshot and put it on my Instagram stories and then make a bit of a joke about it, because then other people can laugh at it with me. And it's really sweet because a lot of my followers on Instagram will always message and say like, oh my God, that's really horrible. Are you okay? And I'm like, yes, it's for, and I always now put a thing about it being like, this is for, you know, for our entertainment. None, like, disclaimer, like, this hasn't made me cry. But I remember the last time I worked at Jeremy Vine for a week, I had people insulting the outfits I was wearing. Someone was like, God, someone needs to fire their wardrobe department, because they obviously thought what I was wearing was so bad. We don't have a wardrobe department. I picked the outfits myself. I was just like, and I remember that someone else mentioned, and this was true, to be fair. So during the pandemic, I decided to take it as an opportunity to grow my eyebrows back, because back in the 90s, when it was cool to have thin eyebrows, I plucked away all of my eyebrows and
oh my God, same.
Back. Yeah, it's a nightmare, isn't it? So obviously I pencil them on now to make them look thicker, but I just thought during the pandemic, work was quiet and you weren't seeing anyone. So I thought, perfect opportunity to grow my eyebrows back. So I started growing them back. And yes, they did look horrendous. But I just thought I won't pluck them or do anything to them, and I'll grow them back fully and I can get them threaded. And then typically I got booked to do a week co-hosting on Jeremy Vine. So I was just like, I don't want to thread my eyebrows now. I've gone like 6 months of growing them back. So I was like, I'm going to leave them and hope for the best. Hopefully I can kind of cover them with makeup so they won't look as bad. But thanks to our lovely viewers on Jeremy Vine, they always like to tweet me and tell me how awful they look. So I think after the first day, I had so many tweets from people saying, what's wrong with her eyebrows? Her eyebrows look awful. And I got home and I was talking to my other half about it, and he was like, you know, I love you, but to be fair, on camera, they do look pretty bad. So I watched it back and I was like, terrible. They do look bad. So then I was like, I'm just going to have to get them thread. So I literally went and plucked them myself, because I was like, actually, they do. So I was like, hands up. I'll put my hands up to that one. They look bad. But yeah, you get it all the time. But I think it's best just to, I just try to ignore it, because I think I get so many lovely tweets and Instagram DMs as well. So that's more important.
Definitely. Well, it's terrible. I just can't believe that people think that it's okay to be commenting on what someone's wearing, what someone's eyebrows look like. I mean, who the hell are you? It's ridiculous.
But the thing is that they would never say it to you in person. It's really easy to write that type of stuff when you're a keyboard warrior. Like I remember I co-hosted with Storm for a week, and I don't know which one of us they were talking about. But what we were both wearing tight dresses, and someone sent a message being like, oh, you look like you're pregnant. You know, when you're just like, if they were talking about Storm, she's like a skinny mini. So it's just like, and I was like, I had on a floaty dress, so you wouldn't even have been able to tell if I was pregnant or not. I'm not pregnant. But you know, you just like
disclaimer.
Just to say. But I just don't know why people think it's okay. But I don't think they'd ever say it to you on the street. No one would ever come up to you and be like, you look pregnant. Or just they can get away with it.
You'd be like, punch.
I know, exactly.
You look knocked out.
Yeah, exactly. It's just because they can do it on social media. It's a shame. I feel like, you know, people, you know, the company that runs Twitter and Instagram, they need to do more to make sure that these negative comments can't go out there, because mine aren't that bad. But if you've watched like Jessie Nelson's documentary from where people are telling her like, you should die or you're too fat to be in that group, I just think, who on earth are these people, and why is it allowed that why are they allowed to write these types of comments? It's awful.
Yeah. And I think the saddest thing is as well is that people do take it to heart, and they do end up taking their own life, you know, when it gets so bad. And it's like you say, you would never ever say that to somebody in real life. And I think it's a crime now though, isn't it? I think it's like punishable. Yeah, I think so. And it should be. So it should be, because like you say, if you were in front of somebody and you were saying something like that, then you'd get done for that anyway, wouldn't you?
I'm so sorry, I'm going to sneeze.
Hey, on you go.
Oh, it's all right. I've held it in. Do you know what? It's funny because I had someone message me recently under one of my pictures on Instagram, and he just said some absolute filth. It was just disgusting. And you know, you just think like, no one needs to hear that kind of sexual stuff. It's gross. So I reported it to Instagram, and they came back and said they weren't going to do anything about it because they didn't think it was that bad. And I was a bit like, what? Come on, guys, like it's a bit unfair. Yeah. So
Gosh.
I don't know. I think it's a really difficult one, but I'm surprised that people are still allowed to get away with it. So it should be punishable. So if it is,
especially if the companies are allowing it, if they're saying, oh yeah, it's not that bad, it's fine.
Yeah, I know. So I know it was a bit frustrating, but it is what it is.
Bless you. I think your attitude is just incredible, the way that you deal with it, and you're just, I don't know, you're an inspiration to so many people, the way that you deal with things, and the fact that you're out there living your dream as well, and every single job that you do, you can tell your passion, just, you can see that it's what you're meant to do.
Oh, thank you. It's really difficult because there have been many times where I've had so much rejection from jobs that I wanted, or they just haven't worked out. And I think the first few years of doing this job, I used to get so upset if I'd go for a job and then not get it, or I'd cover for a job and then they wouldn't offer it to me full time. They'd offer it to someone else. And I'd just be like, I just don't get it. Because then you start to question yourself, like, am I not talented enough? But it's always worked out. And there's always been a better opportunity that's come. So I've decided now that my attitude towards this is, if something doesn't work out, it's because it's not meant to work out and something better will come along. So I don't want to waste my time worrying about things. And I was actually having this conversation with some of my friends that also work in the industry. We've got like we always give like pep talks to each other. And there'll be some weeks where I'm just like, I've sent out loads of emails and no one's come back to me and I feel really rejected. And they'll be like, come on, you're good at what you do. Think you've done this, you've done that, you've done that. And I think, yes, you're right. And then the next week it'll be them that's like, oh, I feel really rubbish about what I'm doing with work. And I'm like, come on. But I think you have to stay positive. And it does always work out. There's been
it does
times in the past where, for example, I did a week on Capital. This was a really long time ago. Capital down in the South Coast. I was demoing for them for about 1.5 years. And then eventually they were like, oh, we want to put you on Breakfast to cover for a week. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, this is it. Like, this is my big opportunity. I've made it. And I did a week and nothing else came of it. And when I look back at it now, it's because I didn't have enough experience. And I mean, I sounded all right. I was co-hosting with someone else and he was amazing. He was really good. So he made me sound good. But by myself, when I did a demo for them after, I wasn't strong enough I didn't have enough experience. So I get why nothing came of it. And I was really upset about it for ages. But then suddenly I got offered this cover job as a booth girl on The Right Stuff. So I was just like, if I'd got Capital, I wouldn't have been able to do The Right Stuff. And then I did loads of cover on The Right Stuff. And I always thought, I want to do this full time. And then that just didn't end up happening. And again, I was a bit like, oh, it's a shame because I really wanted to do it. But then I got offered my own radio show on Heat Radio, which was really, really fun. And I loved it. And it always works out. So I just have that mindset now. If something doesn't happen, it's not meant to be, and something better will come along.
Definitely. And it's all about trusting your path, isn't it? Trusting your journey, like every step of the way. And then even though how upsetting it can be, and you can't think of a possible reason why that wouldn't happen or why that would happen, but it's only until afterwards, you learn from it anyway. But then you learn that you were actually not supposed to have that. You're supposed to continue on, and then it's like they say, the best is yet to come.
Yeah, it's so true. And as I said, there's been times where I've been devastated when I haven't been given a show or an opportunity, but then literally a month later something else comes along and I just think, oh, that's why I'm not meant to do that. Yeah, so it does always work out.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I'm so excited to see, so we've known each other for a little while now, and I keep seeing you get more and more and more, and it's like I feel like I'm going on the journey with you. It's really incredible. I can't wait to see what the future holds for you, honestly.
You know what? Someone from school randomly messaged me, this was about 6 months ago, and it's not someone that I was ever that close to at school, or I never speak to now. And they sent me this message, and they were just like, oh, I just want to send you a message to be like, I've been following your journey since you first started doing presenting, and like, you just keep getting all these jobs, and like, they're getting bigger and bigger, and it's just so nice to be on that journey with you. And I just thought that's nice. Really nice. Yeah. Because it's been a tough journey to be on. So it's nice that I've gone from, making the teas and the coffees to now like being able to do more and more presenting stuff. So yeah, it's
definitely good. So whereabouts, what's your next shift after this interview?
So I'm on air at 1 o'clock in the morning for Heart on their national station.
So have you got to stay there until 1?
Yes. So I'm here till 1 o'clock.
That's a long time.
Oh, do you know what? It's not too bad. I don't do it very often, but the time I like have some dinner, and then it's a 5-hour show, and I really love to do loads of prep. So I'll probably have some food and like chill for a little bit, and then I'll slowly start like looking at content for the show. And obviously with it being 5 hours long, you need lots of content. So it kind of takes me a while to do that. So by the time I've done that and then edit up all the music and stuff to make it all sound really slick, it will pretty much be 1 o'clock in the morning. So
do you get to choose your own music, like on the shows that you do? I've always wondered that, or wondered whether you've kind of given a playlist already, or whether you can like take requests and stuff.
So we have a very talented music guy who does all of our music for us, because music is very carefully thought out. And I didn't know much about this until when I used to work on Heat Radio. I did it was like a request hour on my show, so people could like message in and request songs, but it wasn't just a sense of someone texts me and says, can you play Little Mix, because you have to check to see when Little Mix was last played on that station, what song was played from Little Mix, because if they were played half an hour ago, you don't want to then play them again. So every song that's put in there is really carefully thought out. And I don't know how they do it here, but when I used to work at Heat, for example, they had like a table and everything was numbered. So it was quite complicated, because they always make sure that you always start your hour with a really amazing song that everyone's going to know, because then it keeps them wanting
interested
more. It's like when you go to an ad break, you always have a really good song, and when you come back from an ad break, there's always a really good song. So it's always like a big song that will like lock people in, so they want to stay for more. So it takes a lot of time and effort to think about it. When you think about radio stations as well, they all have certain types of music that they play. So this type of stuff you hear on like Heart, for example, you wouldn't hear on like Classic FM. So you need to make sure that if you're a listener to Heart, when you're tuning into the radio station, you know what you're going to get,
and you can recognize it, can't you?
So that's why our music team, they're really good at making sure that the music is for like the average Heart listener, so it'll be different to what you get on other stations. So I don't get to pick the music, I'm afraid, but I love all the tunes that I get to play, so it's a perfect station for me to work on.
Yeah, definitely. And I think sometimes, like I've listened to you a few times, you would say, and after we'll come back after this, and then we will play, and then you say the song, the song, and then I'm like, yes, can't wait for this one, because it's a song that people love. So that's why they do that way, so that you keep the engagement. It's really
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, it's always good when you go to an ad break, you always tease ahead for the songs that are coming, because you want to keep people listening. So if you say something like, and on the way I've got the biggest tune from 2005 to play you, you'll be like, what was the biggest tune from 2005? I need to stick around. I need to stick around to hear it. So it's all about the tease.
It's brilliant. I like all the, I say old classics, but since I've got like our eldest daughter, she's going to be 17 tomorrow, but because the time's gone so fast, I still hear music from when I was her age, and I'm like, oh my god, that's such a tune, but it's not now, it's old. And I always like them kind of things,
What made me feel old is recently it was like my other half's cousin, her daughter, for example, I mentioned the Backstreet Boys, and she was like, who? I was like, the Backstreet Boys. And she was like, who's that? I was like, oh my god, these kids, now I feel old, they don't know who the Backstreet Boys are. Scary, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. Rezzy, I could literally talk to you all day.
I know, likewise.
I know, it's so fun. But I think we're going to have to wrap up, and we will, before we go, just in case anybody has any questions for Rezzy, then just get in touch. Let me know and I'll put your questions to her. But I just want to say, Rezzy, it's been absolutely incredible, and I've really enjoyed speaking to you, and you have such a gorgeous energy, and it's been great. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel honoured to be here. This has been really fun. Thank you.
I feel honoured to have you. Right, well, we shall speak soon, and thank you.
Take care.